Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Welcome to the Evanston History Center at the Charles Dawes House. My name is Krista. I'm the Director of Public Engagement here. It's lovely to see all of you. Is it anyone's first time in the Dawes House? Great, excellent. Well, it's great to see some new faces and some returning faces as well. As I mentioned, this is a program at the Evanston History Center. We are at the Charles Dawes House. Charles Dawes was Vice President of the United States under Calvin Coolidge. And if you're interested in learning more about this particular house, in addition to the passive house that we're going to hear about later, we welcome you to come back. We do house tours Thursdays through Sundays between 1 and 4. So we'd love to see you back if you haven't done a house tour. We also recognize that this house and the land that is on has a history that goes back way further than Charles Dawes. The home stands on the unceded ancestral lands of the Potawatomi, the Ojibwe, and the Odawa peoples, and we honor this history and we remember it as we use this house that we are very privileged to be in. And as the Evanston History Center, even though we are based in the home of one historic Evanstonian, we're committed to honoring and highlighting the stories of all of the people of Evanston, past and present. We take seriously our role in making sure different stories and perspectives are valued, and that through exploration and dialogue, we all continue learning together. In addition to highlighting the people of Evanston and their histories, we love to talk about and share the built heritage of Evanston, and that's what we're going to be looking at this evening. We're so excited to have architect Nate Kipnis here, along with homeowner Margaret Stender, for this talk on passive house, which I will introduce more in a second. A couple logistical comments. There's a bathroom over to the left, so you're welcome to use that. We'll run about the presentation. I know they have a lot to talk about, so the presentation will run about 60 minutes, and then we'll have time afterwards for Q&A. So if you need to go, that's perfectly fine. If you'd love to stay and have some dialogue with your neighbors and an interesting discussion, I have a feeling people are going to have a lot of questions. So Nate and Margaret are going to be available for that. I feel like a movie star with all these cameras. We have Facebook Live, so that we are live streaming on Facebook Live. Welcome if anyone's joining us online. That's also enabling us to record it and share it afterwards, especially for those who weren't able to come. And then we have a journalism student from Northwestern who is here with the Northwestern News Network. They're doing a piece on Earth Day, and this will just be one of the many segments that they're going to include in that piece on Northwestern News Network. We're pleased to offer these programs free for Evanstonians, although we also always welcome donations. So thank you to those of you who have donated. And if you're able and interested to do so, there's QR codes up front that you can do that. Also up front, we welcome Vicki Parker from American Vintage Home. American Vintage Home is a sponsor of our House Walk program, and much of the work that they do in terms of combining historic preservation with environmental sustainability is very much along the lines of this talk and the work that we're supporting at the Evanston History Center. So we're always pleased to partner with them. And the last thing I'll say before introducing Nate and Margaret is that if you get even more excited about this house by seeing the slides and hearing Nate and Margaret talk about it, we are very excited to announce that Margaret's house is going to be on our House Walk this year. The House Walk is, it's the 50th year that Evanston History Center has been doing it. So it's a very special year. And there's about 6 or 7 or 8 houses in Evanston that the homeowners graciously open their homes for people to tour through on Mother's Day. So tickets are available for that, and we hope to see all of you back there. And again, thank you, Margaret, for your participation in that. Let's get started. I want to introduce Nate Kipnis. He is a principal of Kipnis Architecture and Planning based in Evanston and Boulder, Colorado. There's some really cool information that Nate left out front that I encourage you to pick up. His award-winning firm specializes in designing sustainable, resilient, and healthy buildings that merge the concepts of high design and low carbon. And this is cool. His first solar home, located in Boulder, was designed in 1983. And then also with Nate, we have Margaret Stender. Margaret is the homeowner of the passive house. She was here with us last year, I believe, before she moved in, and now she's been there for a year. So she's been in Evanston a little over a year. We're so proud to have her and happy to include her in our community. And professionally, she served as the founding CEO of the WNBA team, the Chicago Sky, and has supported women in basketball amongst many other things. So thank you all for being here, and I'm going to hand it over to Nate and Margaret.
All right, well, thank you very much. It's good to be back here. It's good to see so many friends here too, so that's really cool. This was quite a challenging project. It is a passive house, which I'll explain in a minute, and it also is in a listed historic district, which is the double whammy of this thing. Trying to get that, the thing I like to say about Evanston is we've got 19 decades of homes, and we need to celebrate every one of those decades. So it's not just about making a historic looking home, but making one for these times. Just want to explain quickly about some of the work I've done. This is showing some of the high performance homes we've done. The one on the upper left was Home of the Decade from Natural Home Magazine. The one in the middle is an all-electric home. That's something that we do almost on every single project now. The one on the right is in Chicago. You kind of get that sense, a very tall, slender one. This was aging in place in Lake Bluff for a couple that is their forever home, one level living. And the one in the bottom was it's under construction now. It's in Boulder. It's a all-electric home for a Hollywood special effects director. It's got an amazing view looking down into Boulder. Every angle of that house is the equinox, the solstice, sunrise, sunset. There's a hallway where the sun at noon on his birthday drops into a little sculptural thing. That's a different lecture. And then we've done a whole bunch of historic homes over the years. We've been in business 32 years, and I think we're doing about one that goes before the Preservation Commission every year. You probably recognize a bunch of these. Doing work in the historic district is a real honor to try and figure out how to do these to make them look right. And then it was a real interesting privilege to do one that was brand new but still fit in. So I'll say this, and Margaret can pick up on this. But we met in the bike club. Well, you can tell which one I am, I guess. This is the only picture that I'm going to be taller than Margaret. But yeah, this is my family. On the weekends we hang out all the time, ride together everywhere. And if you're not already in the Evanston Bike Club, you should look into that. Margaret's on the board. Rudy's here. Yeah, a lot of people represented here. So I'll turn it over to Margaret.
Okay, great. Okay. I'm sorry, I wasn't sure. There we go. Okay, great. Okay, good evening, everybody. I just can't tell you how thrilled I am to live in Evanston. I moved into my house on Earth Day a year ago, and it's amazing and awesome. And we're just going to start by, how all this started. So I was newly retired and really looking for a whole new kind of growth energy. And for the first time in my life, at least the last 25 years, I found myself with no one to care for other than myself, which is getting to be a bigger and bigger job, by the way. And I had lived in Chicago for 40 years. And, as much as I love the big city and I see myself as an urban person, Chicago was just had lost a little bit of its magic for me. And I really wanted to be closer to old and very dear friends. I have a lot of wonderful friends in the North Shore. And then I've met these just incredible new biking friends. I joined the bike club in 2019, and they, yes, as Nate said, have become my family, especially on the weekends. It's a really special group. I also wanted to create kind of my forever home. So I'm 68, and this is going to be, as I joke, there's only one way out of this house, and it's horizontal. So I wanted it to be as joyful as I possibly could manage. And then, there was a lot that I learned from this project, just pursuing new, and didn't know what a passive house was until I met Nate. And so it's just been a really fun learning experience. Evanston, already mentioned, I chose Evanston because it's close to people that I really love and care for. I love that it's its own city. I am an urban person, and respectfully, it's not a suburb, and I like that. I like we have our own mayor. The council people make me feel like the alderman that I used to know in Chicago. It's a beautiful, diverse, and progressive town. I love its walkability. I walked here tonight from the house. I try to go as long as I can without taking my car out of the garage. It's great fun. It's so fun to have open green space, which I didn't get to enjoy very much in Chicago. And of course, I love the university influence. I've already started taking continuing education classes there, and it's awesome. I didn't really know that much about environmentally sustainable before I met Nate. I just knew we all need to do something, that the problem is getting bigger and bigger every single day, and I was very concerned, and I wanted to be part of the solution. If I was going to either renovate something or build something, I wanted to just contribute to something positive, even if it's just in a small way. I already mentioned I was thrilled to learn about a passive house. You'll see from the pictures that Nate shows, the house is very much outside, inside out, and that was very much part of the design from the get-go, and really being kind of in the environment and enjoying the nature. Why modern? So this is my house in Chicago. I lived here for 30 years, almost 35 years. I raised my children here. It's an old Victorian house. Before this house as a kid, I lived in a colonial house. So modern was not in my family's vernacular, but like I said, had to try something new. And so I really wanted something that was fresh and contemporary. I'm kind of not a very big clutter kid, so I like the minimalist approach of contemporary, and I've already mentioned our outside inside. So how did this happen? 1210 Maple did not exist. It was a vacant lot. This is it. And the vacant lot was next to 1214. Steve knows this residence very well, and he's
not
kind of
entirely vacant. We would play out.
Yeah, this was his front yard, and he's still speaking to me, even though now my houses are in it. And so I started looking in Evanston in the spring of 21, and this house was owned by a family named the Herricks, and they had lived there for a very long time. He passed away, and his children were not interested in living in the big house, which is 1214. So they had the house on the market, but the house owned the vacant lot. And it was expensive to sell a huge, big, beautiful Victorian home with a vacant lot. Was pretty expensive. So it wasn't getting a lot of traction. So we asked if they would be interested in splitting the lot. So it was 108 feet across at the street level. So I took 50, and the big house kept 58. And so this shows you how we split the lot. That was an interesting process to redo the zoning. And Cook County couldn't find me for a really long time. Google didn't know where 1210 was. We had a whole kinds of mail problems. Unfortunately, Cook County's now found me. But it was quite the process. So anyway, then, I decided to partner with Nate and his incredible team, and we can talk about that more. We got the zoning done in June. We went to the Preservation Commission a couple of times, made a few revisions, which I'm sure Nate will tell you about. The permit was in November, and it was done on Earth Day. And his incredible team promised 18 months, and can I tell you that they delivered exactly on 18 months. And every person that I tell is like waiting for me to tell the horror story about building a house from scratch. Well, I didn't have that experience. He has a remarkable team, which he'll tell you all the different principles that were involved, and they were wonderful. The April 22 was the finish date. Many things changed in the key date schedule throughout that process, but that date never changed. And that's all for me. Now, as he explains, I can tell you a little bit later about, now that I've lived in the house for a year, what it's like, but I'll let him explain how the house was built first.
All right. Well, just before I forget, the Earth Day thing, I remember when we were talking with the contractor, which is Brilliant Builders, one of our partners in Next House, And they were like, okay, let's figure out the schedule. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, it's 18 months. It's April 30th. I go, oh, no. It's April 22nd. Are you kidding me? We're going to do this on Earth Day. And we did.
And we did.
That's the story of it, right? I want to give some context here. This is the block of 1200 Maple. It is one of the better blocks, one of the most historically significant blocks. It's intimidating to do something like what we pulled off there with this kind of context. So the thing I do want you to look at is almost every one of them has a covered porch. They all have columns holding that up. A lot of them are siding. The old siding was actually pretty narrow, not like more modern, but narrow. And then some of them were stucco. That was the main exterior material. Most of them have bays. They're off-center, the entry's on the side. The stairs, there's about 8 stairs up. We'll get to the meaning of that in a little bit. The bay typically penetrated the roof plane. You can see that on the upper right one.
And the upper right is 1214.
Yeah, that's
just for
directly
context.
next door.
So that is my neighbor.
Yeah.
That owned the lot.
There's definitely a wide variety. Typically, these are about 1880 to 1920 is the time period for this, which is pretty typical of the historic districts throughout Evanston. There are some examples of modern homes that are poking around in the historic district. There's not a lot. And we certainly referenced these when we went before the Preservation Commission, but it's a difficult task to do this. And I'll get to the rules in a minute. But one of the problems is when someone gets handicapped in one of these old homes, there's 8 steps up, out comes the aluminum or wood ramp, and everyone in the neighborhood knows. And so we wanted to avoid that. For the aging in place aspect, ours is only up 3 steps, and we can bury that into the landscaping if that's ever needed. So that's one of the key things that we were trying to avoid. The other thing is when we presented this, like a lot of people just got like, you can't do this. You can't put something modern in. I'm like, when Evanston was founded, things were actually quite different, even in the historic district. There's a lot of things that have been added. Oh, I don't know, cars, curbs, streets, sidewalks, TV antennas, fire hydrants. None of these were there when the house were first done, and the world did not end. It worked out fine. And actually now we're going to start to see solar panels on some of these historic homes. And I gave a presentation to the Preservation Commission about, how they should look at that. But, things have to adapt. But I do love that we actually have a great historic Preservation Commission here. We've done work in other suburbs. I'm not going to name them, but up further north, where it's a joke. It's, okay, you're going to want to tear the house down, we're going to make you wait 3 months or 6 months. And if it's a really important house, we'll make you wait a year. And they don't stop them. And here it's a really well-crafted series of districts here. And you really feel it when you walk through the historic district. This is right downtown. That's Fountain Square. Yeah. A lot has changed around there, but there's still water somehow there. So one of the things is, and people voiced their opinion about this when we first went before the Preservation Commission. Hey, I'm doing an addition. I got to make it look like the house, or I have to make it relate somehow. But there is something in the code that says if it's a vacant lot, you can essentially, all property, structure, sites, and objects shall be recognized as products of their own time. And that's an important one. And the other one was they are encouraging innovative design and new construction, such as a freestanding structure. The commission shall not impose a requirement for the use of a single architectural style or period, though it may impose a requirement for compatibility. And yes, they did, and I'm glad they did. Mm-hmm. I'm a firm believer in this process. This was not necessarily easy, but at the end of the day, it worked out quite well, and we'll talk about the impacts of that in a minute. So the key things that we were really kind of on point about, the height, the proportion of the facades, like the components, the proportion of the openings. So you've got solids to voids, the rhythm of spacing and structures on the street. In other words, this vacant lot looked like a hole in the urban fabric. And actually, this was a good thing to fill it in. The rhythm of entrance porches and other projections, the relationship of materials and texture, the roof shapes, continuity, and then the scale of the structure. You know, all these things are really important, and we tried to really take it into account. So our first design is the one on the right. We went to that commission meeting, and the newspapers, I mean, I guess Evanston just loves a little controversy. They just started putting it out there that, you know, no one liked this. We got all these letters before the meeting, and I'm like, oh boy, here we go. But we did, this is the building right across the street, and we looked at the proportions. So the ones that are yellow are matched up with the yellow ones on ours, the green ones, the purple, the red. So we were trying to relate the proportions, the width to height of the openings and of the masses. So when we, here it is, here's the newspaper, you know, like, yeah. Anyone here from that meeting? Just before I get going here. So we got a lot of grief from the commission. And I'm not going to read the upper part, but like my thing that I said was the choice is to make the home true to its time or to design a home that pretends to be from a different time period. That's what they do at Disney World, and it's completely at odds with the notion that the historic district is a collection of authentic home styles. You should know when you're walking down the historic district what you're looking at. This is from 1920. This is from 1890. This is from 2024. Like, it should be obvious, but it should still fit in. So we still had this design. They gave me some good comments, and we didn't protest that. We said, yeah, let's work on it. So this is the design that we ended up with. We modified it slightly. The main thing here is just what I talked about before. It's got the covered porch. The porch is lower. It's only 3 steps up. We've got the bay in the middle there. The top of the bay penetrates the bottom of the roof plane. One house on the right is siding, the other one is stucco, so we used a little of both to kind of blend that. The proportions of the windows all work out. You can see that here. The height, we wish we could have gone higher, but that's the highest we could go by code now, by the zoning code. So the other buildings were grandfathered, obviously, higher than we could do. And the house looks big, but it is not big.
Right.
The other houses, I don't know how big they are, 5,000 square feet or more. Ours is 2,900 square feet. It's because it's not deep in the back. But we wanted it to project what it had to do to be comparable to the other homes. This is looking at it kind of in context there with the grid lines going through it. So now let me step back and go, why are we doing this? Why aren't we just making a house and getting this over with? And why are we putting ourselves through all this? So this is a chart that shows CO2 versus global temperature. I mean, anyone that doesn't understand this just doesn't know how to read a graph. Pretty straightforward. I would say even a 5th grader could understand this. You know who I'm talking about. So this is showing all of the temperature. I'm sorry, this is the CO2 and the temperature is the gray line. Look at the beginning of 1940. That's World War II. Very interesting, that spike right there. But otherwise, it's a pretty clean line. This is the chart that scared the hell out of me. This is from 1940 to current day. So the 40s are down here, and it's just kind of stacking up. And you see it's very dense on the bottom. And slowly, year by year by year, it's going up. On the left is the temperature in Celsius. Look what happened in 2023. In 1 year, it went up 0.5 degree Celsius in one shot. That is like when the ice melts in your glass. That's a phase change. That is really bad news, and we're going to see that moving. I mean, there's no way that's not moving up. We're trying every trick we can, doing our part, but that's clearly what that's showing. And then we get these extreme weather events that are very obviously linked to this. So floods, high winds, fires. We don't have fires so much here, but in Boulder, doing those homes that we do there, there are some wild restrictions and aspects of the code. I should point out, most cities have their building code, and then they have about a 3, 4, 5-page amendment. Boulder and Boulder County have a 93-page amendment, and it's pretty much every trick I do. I mean, it's really interesting that it's all in there, but it also has a lot to do with the fire stuff. And then this chart shows billion-dollar climate events year by year. So you can see in the 80s, 90s, it really kind of stayed about the same, and then bam, it all of a sudden went up. And that's another one that I think is going to continue like that. The insurance industry knows what climate change is. They deal with this every day with their statistics. So buildings are the primary emitter of CO2. It's not cars, it's not industry, it is in fact buildings. So transportation is about a quarter, industry is about a third. Building operations are about a quarter, but the embodied energy to build the homes, to actually take the material out of the ground, move it to the processing center, manufacture it, ship it to the site, and install it. Between the two of them, it's about 40%. So that's one of the key things that drives us to do what we do. And then this is a checklist of how to do a sustainable and resilient and well home. And Margaret's house checks every one of those things. So I'm going to just go through it. We energy model the design. In other words, our program we have lets us know what the building's how it's going to perform, and we can look at that in real time. We can add a window and go, what did that just do? We can increase the volume, increase the R value of the walls, and we see that right away. Super, super important. Incorporating wellness principles, making sure we have good, clean air and non-toxic components in the house. Electrify the home. This is a key thing. This is what we're talking about in Evanston with the Evanston 2045 Healthy Building Ordinance about making everything electric. We can control the energy source when it's electric. When it's fossil fuels, it's fossil fuels. When it's electric, every day now, it's getting more and more with renewable energy. So even if it's not perfect right now, it will be. And in Evanston, every single family home and every small business by the city council's decree has 100% renewable energy coming in anyway. That was thanks to Citizens Greener Evanston, which I was on a long time ago. It's now Climate Action Evanston. Design an appropriate sized home. So 2,900 square feet is a sweet size. It's not too big, it's not too small, just right. Design for resilience, that's handling those crazy effects that we were just talking about, and aging in place that Margaret already mentioned. Locate the home in a walkable community, doesn't get much better than this. Understand the impact of embodied carbon, I'll talk about how we dealt with that. Integrate renewable energy plus batteries plus electric car charging, so we did all of that. And design a tight, highly insulated perimeter shell. And we definitely did that. So I'll talk about all of that in detail here. This little diagram on the bottom is the embodied carbon series. So going from pulling it out of the ground to building a city out of that. And then another thing is, why do we care about fossil fuels versus renewable energy? This is the amount of CO2 based on different types of energy. So renewables are in the greenish teal there, and the fossil fuels are not. And so coal is the worst one of all. And you'll see these ads from natural gas company. Oh, we're the clean fuel. Yeah, compared to the only thing in the world worse. And when you take into account fracking with the methane leaks and everything else, and the amount of water it takes, and where are they getting this? Oh, out west where there's no water. It's about, I think it's 10 million gallons per well hole. It's unbelievable. And we can't do that. That is really not a sustainable way to do it. So with the fracking and everything, I think it's just as bad as coal. So what is a passive house? Who knows this? I know some of you do, because I know, yes, Len knows this. So it is a very high performance enclosure. And the key thing is it's super airtight. And I know right now what you're thinking, like, oh my God, it's a terrarium. It has a really good controlled way of bringing fresh air in a manageable, efficient way. It deals with thermal bridge elimination. In other words, if you go outside on a fall day and you see kind of the frost on a building and you'll see vertical lines, those are the studs letting some of the heat through. We don't do that. It's a continuous perimeter insulation. The glazing is super high performance, so not single glazed, not double glazed. These are triple glazed windows with a low E coating. That's a low emissivity coating. It sees at heat's wavelength, it sees it as a mirror, and it bounces the heat inward, keeps it in, or keeps it out in the summer. And the air tightness. So a typical vintage home like what we're in here probably has 10 air changes per hour under pressure. Like a lot of air changes. Like when the wind blows and you like can hear it blowing and then you can feel it and the little dust bunnies run around. Yeah. That's not good. A more modern home has about 5 air changes per hour. Code is 3. We had started doing homes that were at about 1. Passive house is 0.6. And because of the way we detailed this was the first passive house we did, we actually had to hit 0.45. So the contractor had never done what's called a blower door test. And I was like, wow, we have got our work cut out here. Showed him tons of videos. We were on the job site every week. Margaret was at every meeting. We were on them like, oh my God, I can see a hole. I can see outside here. I can see, you get on it. So when we did the testing, I was absolutely out of my mind thinking we're never going to hit this.
Show them the picture.
Yeah, and we had to hit 0.45. We hit 0.37. So unbelievably tight. And the way I describe this is, we hit 0.37, a submarine is 0, and the International Space Station is somewhere in between. They got a leak going on. And the other thing is if we were to somehow pick up Margaret's house and whip it in the lake, it would float. So we could probably put everyone on there and we'd have a nice little cruise.
Come on over, everybody. We'll try it out.
Champagne cruise. So this shows a very interesting aspect of passive house. So we call this passive survivability. If the power goes out, how does the house perform? So this is in Bangor, Maine, and they took a house, the temperature's on the left here. They took 6 houses. The outdoor temperature is the blue. So when they cut the power at the end of, or at the beginning of the first day, it was, minus something, right, or right around 0. It ranged from about 22 to minus 18. And they let the houses go for 6 days. The orange one is probably a typical house. That big orange dotted line, that's freezing. So boom, bad news. Brown one, bad news. Pink one, pipes frozen, all those. The passive house went from 68 to 61 with no power. And the joke is, and this is probably not so much of a joke, if Margaret got cold, she could jump on her bike. She would heat the house quite a bit. Or Rudy, her dog, if she threw the ball and he ran around, his basal metabolic rate would heat the house. So pretty amazing. So that shows you, because it's so tight, and if we have, the battery backup would just get the air-to-air heat exchanger going, we'll get good fresh air. And by the way, remember the smoke that came down from Canada? That would not have, she would not have noticed that. The house, the air tightness, there's ways to adjust that down. So even just turning it off for 2 days, just to ride it out. Doing passive house, PHIUS is Passive House Institute US. There's a very simple chart that we had to work with. Heating, maximum cooling, average cooling. And we want to get check marks, green check marks on the end. And right there we had an X on the peak heating problem. And so we came up with all these different options of how to deal with that, like how to get that number down. We were at, I'm not exactly sure the numbers here, but we had to pick up like little 0.01s, 0.04s, whatever. And we could see these different techniques and we could see what the cost was for each one of them. And then we made a decision on how to attack that, and then we got the check mark that we needed. So here's the house, and so some of the key features, as I mentioned before, passive survivability, resiliently designed for aging in place, And what that means is mainly one floor living. There's an office on the first floor. There's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths upstairs, but there's an office on the first floor that can become a bedroom. There's a bathroom with wider doors. The one hallway we have is wider. It's a 0 threshold shower. It's just perfect. I mean, when you do a new home, it's easier to do this. There's no question about it. Definitely doable in an older home, a lot harder. But as long as we're doing this new, we're doing it all correctly. Obviously located in a highly walkable city. We did get passive house certification. So sometimes you'll hear people like, oh, this house is designed to passive house standards. You have no idea the difference between getting that thing certified and just kind of waving your hand about it. This was really difficult. There's 3 parts to this. It took a long time. Checks during the process, afterwards, checking in with passive house, a lot of stuff. And then it's next to Lake Michigan with fresh water and lake effect thermal tempering. We're in a great spot. You know, if you got to pick a place for climate change, it doesn't get too much better than right here. Some of the other features, it's pre-wired for battery backup. We're looking to get that very soon. It's net zero on an annual basis. We'll talk about the reality of that in a little bit. It is all electric. There is no gas connection. I want to share one funny story, unless you want to do that.
Yeah, well, yeah, so.
No, this is hilarious.
Yeah, so, I start living in the house, and the guys come with the orange vests, right? And I've got tons of windows. This guy in an orange vest keeps walking around my house. He keeps walking and walking and walking. Finally, I'm like, it wasn't Steve, so maybe I should check on who this is.
I don't walk around.
So I go out and I'm like, hey, are you looking for something? Can I help you? And he says, yes, ma'am, where's the gas line? I'm like, oh, there is no gas line. The gas companies come twice. This has happened twice. Finally, second one, I'm like, you know what, you really got to X me off the list. There's no gas here. So that's the all-electric. We can talk about induction cooktop for everybody that wants to later. Get one.
Yeah. That was a great story.
It was fun.
Super high levels of insulation. So I'm not going to remember the exact numbers, but like a typical house might have, 24 in the wall and 49 in the ceiling, and under the slab might be 5. Passive house is 20 under the slab, like in the 50s in the wall, and the roof is like 80 or something like that, or 90. You could have 100, 110. Super tight shell, talked about that.
What is the unit that you're talking about? 100 or what?
The R value. So like when you go shopping at Home Depot, you'll see an R13 bat. Well, this is a much different animal. There's 28 solar panels on the 2 different roofs. And that added up to a 12.6 kilowatt system. It's pretty good. I think the one thing that we did learn is that, and it's not like we didn't know this, but Evanston has a lot of old big trees. And so we're getting shading on the garage. It's been an ongoing problem. And that's been cutting down a lot of the power production, but it is what it is. We did put all that on the north side of the property to get as much southern exposure, and also that's the reason the house is L-shaped with the southern, to get as much southern sun as possible. Oh, and that's a light shelf. I'll explain what that does in just a second, but just keep that in mind. So how not to do it, how not to put solar panels on. So I do think they need to have non-drunk architects doing this. We call this the Mr. Potato Head method. That's why they're up there. The bottom house on the far right just screams 1974. I don't know why. Just brown as you can be. Probably the most efficient house of the time. You couldn't pay me to be in that thing. Just because we want to make it efficient doesn't mean it has to be butt ugly. So here's the back of Margaret's house. And I mentioned it's not so big in the back. It is nice and tall and heroic facing forward. But in the back, there's just that family room. And it kind of talks to the garage, same roof angles and everything. You'll notice the roof angle is not symmetrical. I'll discuss that in a minute too, but you can see you can get more solar panels on that. So how does a light shelf work? So it blocks the high sun coming into the into the family room in the summer. The low sun comes in and gives you some heat, which is nice. But more importantly, the light shelf bounces that light up onto the ceiling on the inside. And so it actually creates a really nice level of daylighting. You'll see that in a minute. So this is the blower door test. So they take off the front door, or they open it up, and they put on this red curtain, and there's a fan there, and then they pressurize the house. They know the volume of the house, they can see the pressure, they can tell how much it's losing. And then they smoke it on the inside, and you watch to see where the smoke's coming out on the outside. And we had to tell people not to call the fire department. And you see there's the foam, okay? If you see that, there's foam and then that stucco. But the smoke is a real problem. Like, we have been told this by Passive House, that people will freak out that the house is on fire, and it is not on fire, but it's a pretty common reaction. Before I get into this, I want to just mention, so this was done through Next House Alliance. So this is a team that we have that is really well integrated. I mentioned Burlient Builders is the general contractor. Lauren Coburn was the interior designer. We have a second interior designer, Janet McCann, not on this project, but on others. Barrett's Technology Solutions did the smart home integration, and Hearst House Landscaping did the landscaping. So we're a really tightly organized group. So some of the details here, I mentioned the air changes per hour. This was the first house we've done a liquid applied membrane. So instead of just like Tyvek, like the floppy stuff that's on a house and it's blowing in the wind, this is painted on, it's like a balloon. And before they were done, I went by and I said, hit every nail hole again. We're never going to get a chance. Again, freaking out about what we had to do here with the air tightness. So they went around, hit every nail hole. It has an energy recovery ventilator, again, that brings in outdoor air in a controlled and efficient manner. I'm not going to read through all the rest of that. One of the more interesting things is Margaret said she did not need a basement. Concrete is one of the worst materials for CO2, and so it's 8% of the global CO2 emissions. So we minimized the concrete, and we only had it pop down. You see that little section in the middle, that's where the mechanical went. The mechanical is raised off the ground in case we have a flood, but it's really a small area. So we also use this product called Carbon Cure, Ozinga. You see their red trucks, the concrete trucks. They inject CO2 into the concrete. The CO2 mixes with the concrete and gets converted to calcium carbonate, which is limestone. It literally locks it in there. I thought the first time I heard that, I'm like, it's just going to squirt out, it'll crack and come out. No, it's locked in chemically, which is really great. So that saves 5% of the CO2, and it offsets the cement, which is really the worst part of it. And then some of the other things I mentioned, triple glazed argon-filled windows. Sierra Pacific is one of our sponsors, along with Velux and Valcucina cabinets, which we'll show in a minute. And Savant is the smart home systems. And Vectorworks is our CAD company, and I'm forgetting a bunch of others, but they're all very helpful for us. I mentioned the minimum basement. We use PacClad, that's another sponsor, on the standing seam metal roof. Recyclable metal and metal made from recycled materials. And I mentioned the Carbon Cure. So we got all these cool systems in the house. I'm not going to talk about too many of them, but look, there's a fireplace. Why would we have a fireplace in a carbon-free house? Well, it's a carbon-free fireplace. It's actually a water place. It's a linear vapor humidifier. And see how this goes.
That's it.
That is colored with LED lights. If you saw the Olympics, the balloon had the same thing. The only negative of this is it teaches little kids to stick their hands in fires. Other than that, fantastic. You can change colors, which I think is going to happen here. It's just going to go light and dark, and then I think we found the blue. Yeah. There's like, hey, Cubs win, hit the blue, stock market crashes, goes
Sky
red.
Win,
Oh
hit
boy.
the blue. Get the right team.
Yeah. So we got all of that. I want to show the finished house now. So this is the big difference from last year because the house wasn't quite done yet. There it is. And you can see all the parts I mentioned with the proportions and everything. We have some rain chains that go into these planters. The one on the left is one that was purchased. The other one is integral into the design, kind of fell off of the bay and flopped over there. That's the interior. So Margaret had mentioned the inside out components. You can see the siding actually goes in to the house. And I remember the contractor was horrified. He's like, why would you do that? I'm like, just hang in there. He's like, it's going to be all rough and everything. I go, no, you'll paint it, it'll be great. And it was great. So because I like walking around historic neighborhoods, I like looking in the windows. So we made sure we gave the people walking by something to look at that's an illuminated niche that you kind of see what's going on there. Really cool thing too. That was from Red Pagoda. What was it?
It's from the Golden Triangle.
Golden Triangle. So they found this super intricate Asian piece of art
Thailand, yeah.
from Thailand, and they cut it. I mean, I don't even know how they did this. They cut it to fit there. Like, if you look at how detailed that is, it blows my mind.
It's beautiful.
Got it to fit in there. And the woman is, of course, guarding the house. That's good little feng shui. Get the heck out of here. That's the one hallway that goes back to her workout room, that looks out into the backyard, that looks into a park, like an amazing sight. And then straight back is the office, and then to the left is the bathroom there. In the middle, this is the Val Cucina kitchen. It is unbelievable. It's made in Italy. It's flat packed. It is very low carbon to get it here. Every part is recyclable. They have a video where they take it all apart and they go, these 3 little grommets aren't recyclable. And it is not like a typical cabinet where it's plywood or OSB. This is aluminum sticks and glass and aluminum panels. And the top is on a counterweight, and the bottom goes down behind the cabinet and exposes all this great cooking stuff. These spice arms swing out, and there's a little pad for an iPad there, and it's quite the setup. You can subtly change the colors, nothing too crazy, and really, really fun there. And that's it closed. So you can see the difference, and it's all nice and minimal because it's right there. Not
No
hidden.
hiding it.
No hiding.
No dirty dishes.
Right. Yeah. Got to be on your best thing there. So this is the inside with the light shelf. So that light shelf is going out around here, and it makes a nice line here. The fireplace tile goes out. The bottom of the light shelf material goes out. So again, bringing indoor out. Mm-hmm. Passive house, I say this accidentally sometimes, passive house limits the glazing. It limits kind of the heat loss, which means we have to watch how many windows. We pile them in here. I mean, this is where we wanted them all, to be able to see the yard, to go out to the side yard. In other spots, it's more minimal, but still, like, I think no downside to it. Mm-hmm. And you can see the ceiling is lit up from the light shelf. Mm-hmm. And you can see it's asymmetrical to get more of that. So, modern house, asymmetrical, but it's doing something for us. This is the bathroom upstairs, a lot of recycled tile content in there. That's the stair. There's Rudy, Rudy the wonder dog. So when we had to limit how many windows we have, we had to make each one do something. It had to be positioned so it really worked for us. That one window is put as close as we wanted to get it to the wall to re-reflect, to get light onto that wall, to bounce it into the space. We did that in all the bedrooms. They're not centered typically. I mean, in your bedroom you've got some, but there's one that's on the side. We always try and do that to maximize the reflection of that. So even though this has what I would say kind of minimal windows, there is not a dark spot in this house. That stair was a really fun thing to do. That's a really cool bike. So that's the back. You can see the different terraced levels. That's the condenser for the heat pump system for the HVAC. So it's just like an air conditioner, except it runs both directions. So like, gee, how does an air conditioner make cool when it's hot out? How does this make heat when it's cold out? So it looks for heat in the air. If you know the Kelvin scale, it goes way down to minus 200 and whatever. So even when it's 0 out, there's a lot of heat in the air. Even when it's minus whatever, the efficiency curve rolls off pretty harshly when it's super cold out. but those are only a few days a year, and I'm betting it's not going to be that many more moving forward. Yeah. So here's the first utility bill. Okay, so it's $32, of which 22 was the delivery, $3.11 was taxes. This is in July with the air conditioning running with a short cycling sump pump. It didn't shut off the entire month. There were still some workers there. $6.97. We have had, I wish it had stayed there. So we have, and so as we've been going, Margaret's been like, what should I do? What should I do? I go, don't touch a thing. Let's go a year. Let's get a baseline set, see where we're at, and then we're going to make adjustments. And so year 1 is going to be whatever. Year 2 will be a little better. Year 3 will be a tiny bit better, and it'll level out. So we have had much higher bills moving forward. Some of that is the sun angles with that shade. This is the first passive house we've done. So it's a learning curve for us. It's great that Margaret let us do this. This takes a lot of trust. We're on our 3rd passive house now. We have the second one is in aptly named Carbondale, Colorado. And the third one is just started construction on Isabella, right here right off of Prairie. So awards won to date. So we got a Design Evanston Award, which was awesome. So that's our first local one. We got an AIA Illinois Design Excellence Award, which was our first one we ever got. And then we got 2 international ones. So the BLT Built one is a great one, but the really wild one is this one. So this is the Green Good Design. When you go to the store and you see those OXO scissors and stuff, they were one of the winners, and like American Airlines and SOM and all these giant firms in Margaret's house. So
No, your design.
no, it was fantastic.
Your design.
It was excellent.
Yep.
So with that,
Maybe I should talk a little bit
yeah,
about...
what's it been like
Yeah,
living there?
So now that I've lived in this beautiful house for a year, maybe I could tell you a little bit about just what it's like to live in a passive house, right? First, I'd just like to say this was a learning experience for both of us, and Nate mentioned the word trust, and I just cannot overemphasize how much trust there is between Nate and his partners and all that are here, and it was just an extraordinarily positive experience, even when we were trying something new. And so I hope that, and part of my objective, I love that he and his team have won so many designs. I just really want people to understand that this is possible and that we need more of them. Okay, I will not kid you, it is more expensive to build a passive house than it is to build a normal house, okay? Hopefully I'm going to live long enough to save on the energy bill to pay back the cost of building it. But if more people build passive homes, the scale will make the price go down after we get rid of these awful tariffs. And this will be a really good thing. So you all be part of the sales story here, right? Encourage people, if you know that they're working on this kind of design, to think about what is the beauty of doing something more environmentally sustainable. Even if it's a little bit more upfront, it'll pay back in the long run for all of us, right? It is the quietest place I have ever lived. I mean, it's unbelievable. If we could be having the biggest hailstorm or snowstorm of the century, I wouldn't know it, except that I have a bazillion windows so I can look out and see. Incredibly quiet. The temperature consistency is remarkable. So, I told you I lived in old houses. You all probably, maybe many of you do this too, where you have thermostats on different floors, and you set your thermostat like at night to turn the temperature down. I used to do that when I lived in my Fremont house in Chicago. I never touched the thermostats, and they're consistent all of the time. I have 2 zones. The first floor is set at 70, and the second floor is set at 65 because that's where we sleep, and I never touched them. And when I first moved in, I asked Nate about, maybe I should turn the thermostat down even lower at night. And he said, you can do that, but it's going to take weeks for it to get down lower, so there's no point in touching it, right? So I never touch it. And it's so quiet and so consistent. It's also very clean. So there's not a lot of dust, and surely we bring in some dust, but it's not, because it's so airtight, we just don't have a lot of dust and a lot of dirt that's coming through the windows. So that's kind of an extra benefit. I also wanted to mention that we have these very high air filters. You saw the MERV was at 13. So the air is super clean. And, I'm not very healthy anyway, but no colds, no problems this winter at all, even in the cold temperatures. So I just feel like I'm living in a very healthy environment, which is great. I just wanted to mention my plants are doing remarkably well in this house. I haven't mentioned that to you, but when I was thinking about this today, it's so they must like the healthy air too. That's the only thing my daughter and I can figure out. And the windows, there's tons of light. So I can go all day without ever turning on a light. And then the sun starts to go down. I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I should turn a light on. So it's
your iPhone.
Yes, yes. Thanks to Barrett's, I turn everything on with my cell phone. So if I ever lose my phone, I'm in serious trouble. But there are buttons. I just don't use them. No wasted space. This is the other thing that we worked really hard on. So it is, I use every room in the house except the spare bedroom, and that gets used, when my adult children come. Other than that, every single room is used, and that just makes me really happy. There were a lot of spaces in my old house where, I never even went in there. I have become a huge believer in an induction cooktop, and if anybody is thinking about purchasing one or changing out, it's amazing. It cooks so clean, so smooth, so fast. You boil water like this. You do have to have stainless steel or iron pans, and you have to kind of get adjusted to how to cook on it, but I highly recommend it, and I think it's amazing. And then the other thing, last thing I would just say is, and Steve and other neighbors, if you're here or weigh in, I've had many folks walk by and say, I can't even remember what was here. I mean, he and his team did such an amazing job of making it feel like it fits here, even though it's modern. I've heard a lot of neighbors, even the ones that maybe weren't so excited about it when we started, are like, it really fits here. So we're very proud of that, and it's been a joy to live here, and I just have loved your community of Evanston. It's been very welcoming. So ask us some questions, and we'll answer away. If there's anything else you want to know.
Yes.
Is the goal with the solar panels to put energy back into the grid?
Yes.
Yes. So.
Okay, and then, so will you recoup some investment at that point?
Yes. So it's interesting. So the meter runs both ways. Okay. So energy going into my house from the grid, or energy going out to the grid. And so we've been keeping track of that. And like in July, which is the bill that Nate showed you, I sent more energy out than I took in. Okay, so but then of course in December and January and February, the house took more from the grid than it was able to generate.
Yeah,
but
you bank it, basically.
Yes. And so once we put a battery down in the drop-down closet, then if we generate more than we need, it'll get stored in the battery. And so that needs to be the next step. The only other thing I wanted to say about that we're learning, or I'm learning, is the energy that the house generates really doesn't have as much to do with the temperature as it does with the sun, right? So the house, and I just brought my little cheat sheet to tell you this, but like March, I sent as much to the grid in March as the house did in October. And in October, the average temperature was in the 70s. And in March, the average temperature was 31. So it's about the sun. And and Nate showed you in the back, I actually just was going to tell you, I had an arborist come. So we're looking at just trimming the trees a little bit higher to try to make sure we get even more sun in the back. But I thought it was illustrative to me that it's not temperature, it's hours of sunlight and then the strength of the sun, how high it up is in the sky.
So I would just, you know, it's taken, I've been doing this a long, long time, and it has finally gotten to the point in the last, I don't know, 5-10 years that we've got heat pump technology, we've got solar panels that cost, you know, they're hardly anything. I can tell you on this house, we're not going to talk too much about cost, but I'll tell you the panels were like 45 or
Yes.
50, but we had, you know, the federal tax credits.
Two incentives.
There were 2 incentives, so that was 30% off and then about 25% from the state. So it's like, you know, you're doing a house like this, it's, you know, 22 grand or something like that. It's really gotten to the point where it's working great. It might get a little cheaper. And the window technology, like everything has finally come together to be able to make this happen. 20 years ago, you couldn't do this like this. Yes.
Yeah, in my probably flawed research, I heard that the heat pumps can't always keep up with Chicago winters. Now, is it because you've got such a tight shell that the heat pump is able to heat it? I mean, if you put that heat pump on your neighbors, for example, wouldn't you still need an old furnace or?
Well, the point is you have to size the equipment correctly, and if you were to, it would be crazy to try and put a heat pump into a house that isn't as insulated as you can make it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to correct one thing you said. It absolutely can work in Chicago, and the first set of homes we did, God, how long ago was this?
But you
Like
gotta
in
get the tight.
2015, we had finished up 3 multi-million-dollar houses. And I'm such a nerd. I went and I checked every hour of every month of every year from October to March to see over the last 30 years, when did we go below, let's say, minus 10? And 30 years ago to 20 years ago, you'd see like 5 hours one year, 8 hours, 3 hours, like you'd see a couple hours. And then 15 years ago, it disappeared. Right. I'm like, all right, we're never going to see that again. So then 2015, I put that in, and what showed up? That Siberian Express thing. I was like, oh my God. And I didn't know if these were going to work. And I'm like having to call 3 people who had just paid a lot of money for me telling them, hey, don't worry about it. I'm like, you might have to get some electric heaters and get some wood. It got down to minus 27 in the house we did in Lake Zurich, didn't click out. So these are rated, the ones, and I mean, they're probably even better. I haven't checked it lately, but Mitsubishi makes some that they're rated to minus 18.9. Those didn't click out at the minus 27. I had quickly looked up on the internet, looking up in Vermont, because there's like a lot of people that have these, and they were like, it can go way lower. And I'm like, oh my God, please make it through this. And it did. So it's a combination of, they absolutely can do it, and getting it insulated and airtight correct. You know, you can't, what you just said is correct. You couldn't just stick it in a house that's very leaky, unless you put like a lot of them in there, and what's the point?
Yeah.
Len, what do you got?
So, did you ever open the windows last year?
Yes. Yeah. So I opened the windows, and I've actually opened them the one beautiful weekend that we had. If everybody can, we've all forgotten that now that it snowed yesterday. But yeah, so the windows are great. I have those beautiful sliding doors in the back off the family room, and then there's ceiling fans. So just because and a lot of people ask, you know, because it's so airtight, does that mean you're not ever able to open the windows? And no, that's...
So the one trick is if it's, just hypothetically, she opens them up and then it, like a real humid air, it's super hot, and then you shut the windows. This house is tuned like, you know, a violin. It takes a long time to get back to temperature. So that is the one thing that's a little different than a normal house. I mean, I remember when my dad got the first air conditioner and the condenser, I mean, I was a little kid, it seemed like it was this tall, but you know, it was an enormous thing, and it was just blast, like they didn't know what they were doing. It was too cold, it would freeze up, it would mold up, like all sorts of terrible things. This is really just precision.
Yep. The other thing I neglected to mention is that if you're cooking, and let's say you cook something that's stinky, you know, the house is so airtight. So right around the corner from the kitchen is a series of little booster buttons, and I can touch a button for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and it just boosts a little more fresh air into the house. So I never feel like, that the curry that we prepared is, overpowering the house, as an
So
example.
that's a good point, though. So the ventilation, it's a recirculating hood. There's very few penetrations through the house. It's just the air-to-air heat exchanger and not much else. So the bathroom vents and everything else go through that air-to-air heat exchanger, and the kitchen exhaust is a recirculating one. So a lot of times, so it's, how do I want to say this? So in homes that aren't passive house, you're supposed to limit that, if you want to have an energy efficient home, to 400 CFM. Okay, but if you go to APT, you'll see exhaust hoods that are 1,000 or 1,200 CFM. If you think about it, a basketball is about a cubic foot. 1,200 basketballs a minute flying out of the house. Think about that.
I can't even imagine that.
Cats flying through the air, getting stuck on the grill. Yeah.
When you cook, does it heat the house up though?
No, I don't even notice it. Because the way an induction cooktop works, the heat is only between, does anybody else have one? Okay, so it works on magnets. There are magnets underneath the glass, and the heat is between the magnet and the pan. That's it. As soon as I move the pan off the glass, I put my hand right on the glass.
What about the oven then?
Well, the oven has they're all energy efficient appliances, but I have not gotten the sense that that's adding to the temperature
I mean,
at
it
all.
will, but it's not
But it
critical.
gets cycled out.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Another induction question. We wired for it, but we haven't put it in, because every time we go back to app, they look completely different. Like they really haven't matured yet as to like what they're going to look like, or how they're going to. Did you find that?
They look
or-
pretty minimal. They're just flat sheet of glass.
And they used to have all the printing all over them, and suddenly there's no printing all
Well,
over them.
they're different. What I discovered when I was shopping for the induction cooktop is that there are different brands that, like I have a Gagano, and it's completely clean. There are no lines. It's just black glass. It's so beautiful. And to clean it, I literally spray glass cleaner on it, wipe it off, and walk away. It's the easiest. And I cooked on gas for my whole life. Some other brands have the lines on the cooktop, kind of like you would think of burners. So you can get what you feel, works better for you.
So there's a really crazy couple of them now that you can mount them under the countertop, and they have laser beams that point to where the centers are, because you can't even see it. You can just put it on the granite and cook.
Oh my God.
Really? On the granite?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I love mine. I'm not. The Gagano is so cool, you guys, that it's all clean glass. I can move the pot anywhere on the glass in the middle of the cooking process, and the heat just goes to that spot. Oh, it's like magic. I'm telling you, it's really cool. You could either have 6 pots on it, or let's say you're moving and then you want to serve over here. You just move the pot over, and the heat just goes with it. It's really cool.
And it's not like the old glass with the red curlicues.
no.
This is not that at all.
No.
Totally different.
Literally, if you put your hand on it, it'll be cold.
A couple of questions about the ComEd interface. Are you banking kilowatt hours? Are you banking dollar value?
I'm not sure that matters, but I think it's kilowatts.
It's kilowatts.
Yeah.
Kilowatts. Do you know if you've got real-time pricing? Does that factor into?
So there's two. What are the two prices? It's
Well, so what he's referring to, real-time pricing or time of day pricing, is really cheap at night. We're an interesting area here. We are so nuclear, and a nuclear power plant cannot adjust at all. It runs consistent 24/7, 365. It cannot go up or down very quick at all. So then you have these peaker plants, natural gas mainly, that make up the difference. But at night, they have so much extra power. So they price it accordingly. They want you to use power at night. And so industry does that. So there's certain companies that run at night, because why not? The power is dirt cheap for them. You have your normal rate that's always the same, or you can get time of day. Time of day is dirt cheap at night and really expensive during the day. So if you have a battery, you can arbitrage this. You can either charge the battery. You actually don't even need solar panels to pull this off. You could just charge the battery up at night when it's dirt cheap and then run it during the day, and you win doing that. Or you have the solar panels, which help during the day, and then you can use the power during the day and then tank it up at night if you need to. There's all sorts of tricks that they allow you to do, but you can get in trouble if you start using the power during the day. You do not have that, I don't think.
But
Yeah.
So you've got a battery, but you're also drawing from the grid sometime.
Or the battery's coming.
Yeah, we don't have the batteries yet. And so I am going back and forth between the grid and then what the house generates.
Yep.
What's the deal on I noticed when I go walking through on the easement.
Oh, yes. When you're trespassing on my path right here? Yeah, uh-huh. Go ahead, Steve, neighbor.
I start on Greg's, and then I dodge over.
Go on. What do you want to
But
know?
no, you have downspouts that are perforated. And
Oh, yeah, talk about
in
that.
front and then in the back too.
Yeah.
And they look great.
So
What's
the down, you can barely see them
I don't
here.
think you can on these pictures.
Well, on the back they're perfect.
Yeah.
So what he means by perforated, they're open on the side facing away from the house, so they never get clogged. So and if there's leaves in there, you can just reach in and grab them. But and the rain chains don't have that problem at all. The cool thing about the rain chains, I mean, you can see it. It's very kinetic. And in the winter, they freeze up, and then the sun hits them, and you get little rainbows, and then it melts. I mean, you know, why not, right? Kind of fun. It looks better in the front to do that than to have the downspouts.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is a materials question. So, I mean, I don't know what else to call it, like a liquid insulation. So, can that be done on any home? So, let's say you have your average little ranch from the 1980s, and you're taking off the siding. Can you apply that?
You can, but you have to get to, like if you totally gut the exterior, you could do that. I wouldn't recommend it for like an area.
Well, that's what I mean. So
Yeah.
you're redoing the siding on your
So so when I was helping Citizens Greener Evanston, we wanted to come out with kind of one-pagers of what people could do. But there's so many different building types here. For every decade, they built a little bit different, but mainly like the 1890s to 1900, 1910 to the late 20s, the 50s, and then current. They're all built different. So it's hard for me to go, sure, do that. You really need someone to take a look at the holistic aspect of what you're trying to do. So, I mean, in theory, yes, you could do that, but I would be concerned to do everything else that would entail. So, yeah. Yes?
I just had a question about the heat pumps. Was there a decision to use those over like radiant floor heating?
Well, the heat pump is a way to get, there's two types of heat pumps. There's an air source heat pump and there's a ground source, so that's geothermal. They're sort of related. I'm a bigger fan of air source. When you do the geothermal, there's a lot of equipment. You're paying for pumping the water down or the fluid down 110 feet and back up, and you got 15 holes, and the lawn looks like a mud bog truck event. Not great. So we use the air source heat pumps, but so what was the other part?
Just that there was an advantage going with radiant floor heating.
Oh, so radiant is how it's delivered. And we used to do radiant heat a lot. And the great thing about radiant heat is, like, the colder it gets, the hotter your floor gets. But the problem is, the tighter we make the house, the less that happened, to the point where it doesn't really happen. And I remember being at a lecture, and this guy was up there bragging about how hot his floors got. I'm like, you have a leaky house, don't you? Like, it's very obvious that that's not a good thing.
Right.
We like radiant floor if you're going to do it, like in the mudroom or in the primary bath or something like that, where it's really point sourced, point application, and you're barefoot in the bathroom, you'll really feel it. But in an efficient house, you're not gonna feel a radiant floor at all. And the problem then is, if you do a radiant floor, now you need an air conditioning system that's completely separate. So it's basically double the cost. Mm-hmm. So we've stopped doing radiant heat. The last one I think we did was our house a long time ago, and I just don't like them at all. Yes?
As we look towards Evanston 2045 and hopefully building more affordable multifamily units, can this kind of technology be brought to that?
Yeah, so what's interesting is if you go on the PHIUS, the PHIUS website, there's a whole lot of affordable housing that has been passive house done, multifamily primarily, definitely doable. And like Margaret said, this is like at the beginning of it, so this is a prototype, and and Margaret was great to let us do this, and it worked out, and I'm a big believer. I mean, I knew this existed, and we didn't have a client to do it. I knew about it for a long time, and I talked to Margaret, and she's like, yeah, let's do it. But yeah, I think it's definitely applicable. It's the only way that we're going to get to stuff that is at zero. And I was the national co-chair of the American Institute of Architects 2030 commitment about getting stuff to zero. And we chart our stuff, I think it's 13, 14 years we've been doing it. And as soon as we did passive house, the chart went way up there. And it's the only way I can think of to get to true zero. Yes?
Where do you think all the passive related things are on that cost curve? Are they like where solar was in 2010, or they have a lot of cost?
Yeah, so there's 4 parts of this house that cost more. So the insulation, because we're using more insulation, and the air sealing, making sure all the cracks that's labor intensive. So that's more money. The windows definitely cost more, double glaze versus triple. Well, you got 50% more glass, guess what? 50% more cost. The interesting thing is the price is coming down primarily because of gigantic TVs. That they've been very good at making big pieces of lightweight glass. I remember the first TV I got that was a thin TV. It weighed like 50 pounds, and now they weigh like nothing.
Yeah.
And so the price is going to come down on the glass. The other 2 parts are the electrical, just because we got a lot of systems going, and the mechanical. I don't even really think the mechanical is that much more, because we do the air source heat pumps and the energy recovery ventilators on the houses anyway. But compared to a crappy gas-fired forced air system, it is definitely more money, So, but yeah, the prices are working their way down on all of this stuff. Yes.
What about the aggregates? You brought up Bazinga.
Oh yeah.
And I know that Europe is, I've got clients over in Europe that is big aggregate, cement, concrete, and they're big, right? Taking the CO2 levels down. So did that cost more than Bazinga?
What's wild is it is a zero cost difference. So because you're not using as much cement, the cement's the expensive part. It's a zero cost. But you just reminded me, one of the things we did for resilient design is instead of the foundation being 8 inches above grade, it's 20 inches above grade. So as a flood protection thing, we did do that. Well, you can see it right there. It's up higher, and that went all the way around the house.
Is that why you had the 2 steps to get in the house?
Well, 3 steps, but yeah, that is why. I mean, we said it. Well, we also didn't want it to be nothing.
Yeah.
If you look at the house as it's finished, we wanted that front patio to be at a certain level.
Right.
It is lower than the other ones, and Margaret has told me she likes that because you're more relatable. It's kind of like a judging platform on the really high ones, right? And this is much more relatable, so that's a good thing. Yes?
You mentioned that the windows, the triple glazed windows, they function a little bit like a mirror, like a glazing. Have you had problems with bird strikes or?
No, none. And I actually did think that might be a problem, but no, there's nothing.
I just want to be clear. At heat's wavelength, it sees it as a mirror, not visually. It is the same as normal glass. We've had plenty of houses where they've had some issues with birds.
I have not.
This is a problem. So I get Dwell magazine. Dwell magazine's really cool. Once in a while, I'd say once a year, they show a mirrored house, and they just get so excited about this. And the comments are unbelievable. Like, this is a bird killing machine. Like, you cannot, why are you promoting this? They do make glass that's made for this. It's expensive, but coming down in price. I know up at the Highland Park Beach, at Rosewood Beach, they have that glass. You can barely see it. You have to really stare at it, but birds see it. And then there's other tricks you can do. In Glencoe, the theater there, Writers Theater, Jeannie Gang did something with wood in front of it to prevent that. There's different techniques for that, but it is something we try and take into account. This is not a lot of glass. I mean, there's some houses that are like glass boxes that, you know, it's bad news. And I remember the Apple store, when they first put that in, we stayed downtown and we walked out there and there's a guy picking up the birds every morning. I mean, it's ridiculous that Apple would be doing that of all the companies.
Lot of bad press for that. Right.
I guess they're broke now, but anyway.
I'm curious about the filters. How many does your house use for, you said it's about 2,900 square feet.
Yep.
How many filters?
Number of filters.
Oh, geez.
Are they easy to change? And how frequently do you need to change them?
Oh my God.
Well, I don't even know where they are, so I'm not going to change them, but I think there's some in the attic and there's some in the basement.
Guess I'm changing them.
No.
There's one filter per mechanical zone, and there's a filter in the ERV. So I am not sure what the replacement is on those. Probably once a year.
Yeah, that's what I was talking to you about
and
the HVAC company that put in all the equipment. They were recommending that they want to come a couple times a year and just check everything and make sure, and then if the filters need to be changed, then we'll change them.
So she had mentioned before, it's a MERV 13 filter. I don't know if you guys know what that is. So when you go to Home Depot, the little thin one is like a MERV 1 or 2 or something. The thicker box that you might see is a MERV 8 typically. The 13 is where you get into like getting close to HEPA filter, filtration.
Yeah, I think it's probably not something that I
can.
can just go to Home Depot and buy. I think the HVAC guys have to do it.
Yeah.
So you're heating water with electricity. Is it multiple water heaters?
Oh, so we didn't even talk about that. So there's a heat pump water heater, and the way they do the heat pump for the water heater is it actually takes the heat from the air inside the house. It is a kind of a wild way to do it. So it's down in that lower level, and we have a smart home system which generates some heat. So we put it next to the water heater, so the smart home devices are actually heating the water, which is kind of crazy. That process has a slightly slower recovery rate. There's a button on there that makes it a hybrid, where if it needs it, it'll kick into the pure electric. And if you know you're having, like, hey, we're having a wedding and we're gonna have everyone taking a shower, you can just stick it on full electric and it'll heat up real quick, but obviously that's more expensive to run.
Right, so I don't have it set on that, but when I go up into my bathroom to take a shower, I have a little remote control. It's about this big and it's in my top drawer, and I just punch it to a sensor, and the sensor goes down to the water heater and tells the water heater that I'm about ready to take a shower. By the time I get in there, it's hot as can be.
We have a...
so I don't waste, so I'm not, it's in energy, so I don't have to waste it.
So there is a recirculating line in there, and I believe it's on a motion sensor, but like you can forward. So usually if you open the door, it turns on, and you got to do whatever you do, and by the time you get to the hot water, it's already ready. But if you want to get in there a little quicker, you can remote do it.
Actually, two more questions. One is about the waters that you're talking about. Are you reusing the water from your shower for a toilet or from your sink? Is it using? Are you doing any of those things?
So that's the next plateau. So that that is a tricky thing. There is a firm, FAR Associates. Len is the owner of FAR. They did the first black water or gray water recycling in Chicago. What is that, like 5700, what is that street?
It was the Ames House, I think.
Yeah, so that was, a lot of the stuff we do has to do with unions, and the plumbing union is a very powerful union, and it took a lot to get that, but now that it's here, Chicago, theoretically, you can do it in Chicago. We've never done it. It's not high on our list. I mean, I don't want to downplay Lake Michigan, but you know, it's funny because like in Phoenix, there's a lot of people that think this stuff is all hippie stuff, but when it comes to water, guess what? They are on it, and they have to be. And I think moving forward, we're going to see more and more of that. But we didn't do it. It may become more important down the line.
My second question has to do with the EV. So I don't know if you've got an electric vehicle
Not
or not,
yet.
but you have a detached garage.
Mm-hmm.
Was that because of the EV station so that, or like, I'm surprised that design wouldn't have been incorporated into an attached?
All the garages in Evanston are detached.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, so that's why. And I haven't gotten an EV yet, but
So
But I will.
the garage is structurally set up for an ADU. We talked about that, about making that ready for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not right now, but she can put that in later.
You get a used Tesla really cheap.
yep. Thank you. No thanks. Yes.
All right, this question and one more, and then I think we'll
I
call
just
it.
wondered if you used copper or PEX for the water line.
Oh, my God. That I don't even remember.
Probably copper. It was probably copper.
It probably, I'm pretty sure it is. I mean,
Yep.
not a big fan of PEX. That's a plastic tubing. When the water sits in there, I'm not exactly sure what's going on. I don't know what's going on with copper, but it hasn't seemed to matter in hundreds of years. So, yeah, I'm actually surprised that we were able to do that, but that's okay. It gives you an option. Okay, last question. Anyone want to do that, or are we?
Nope. Good. We ended
All right,
at the
we're
right
good.
time.
Well, thank you very
Thanks
much.
a lot, everyone.